Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Crypto Hot Seat. Boy, have we got a good one today. Today, we are joined by Mr. Jaspreet Singh. He is an entrepreneur and investor. He's perhaps most well known for his YouTube channel, Minority Mindset, which bears the distinction of having just recently crossed 1 million subscribers. Jaspreet, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me on.
So a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about things like investing, where to put money versus paying down debt or investing. But I thought, could you talk to us a little bit about when you started Minority Mindset, your YouTube channel? How far off did 1 million seem, and what does it feel like now that you've crossed 1 million?
Oh man, it's funny. When I started Minority Mindset, it was a hobby. I was in law school at the time. And I remember I was making videos for fun, and a lot of people don't believe me. They're like, oh, no way that we're making these videos for fun. I started Minority Mindset because I got scammed in a previous business that I was running. And I got so irritated. I was like, man, I didn't grow up learning about entrepreneurship or financial education or investing. So I was so irritated. And I went onto Udemy and I created a class on how to launch a business without getting screwed over. And I charged like $7 for it. And I put the class on Udemy and people were like, hey, this is really cool. Can you please create a social media page? And I said, okay. So I went onto Instagram and I created an Instagram page. And I did this all under the alias Minority Mindset. The whole idea being you have to think differently than the majority of people. So I went onto Instagram and started posting the same stuff. And people said, hey, Jaspreet or Minority Mindset, can you please start a blog? And I was like, English is my second language. You're not going to like my writing. So no, I can't start a blog, but I could talk. So I started making YouTube videos. And a few months into it, one of my friends asked me, how much money are you making on YouTube? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, your advertisements on YouTube. I was like, I have no idea. He's like, don't you have advertisements on? Yeah. And I was like, I have no idea. And so he goes onto my channel. This is before there was any sort of monetization requirements on YouTube. And he's like, dude, you haven't even turned on ads on your channel. I didn't know that I could. So he turns it on. And so for me, it started off just as a hobby because I was doing other things. I was in school. I was working on a different business. I was really active in real estate. And I remember telling myself wow, if one day this channel grows to 100,000 subscribers, that'll be it. 100,000 subscribers is insane because people weren't watching finance on YouTube at the time. Who cared about finance? It was I didn't know anyone else that liked finance, which is why I liked the idea of talking about it because I had no one to talk to about it. My friends were always annoyed by it. And I was like, man, if I hit 1 million subscribers, oh my God, I would just shut the channel down because that's not even possible. So it's crazy to think that we have grown from this little idea, a hobby, to now being a full financial media and education company with a full team and over 1 million subscribers. It's insane how it kind of went, but it shows you that people are looking for real financial education. For sure. People are looking to educate themselves.
What was the time frame going from 0 to 1 million? How many years, I'm guessing?
My first video was in 2015. And then I really decided to kind of go into making videos on March 1st, 2016. So March 1st, 2016, again, we didn't really have many. I think it was 3,000 subscribers or something at that time. So 5 years, a little bit over 5 years to hit 1 million subscribers.
So where does your own financial education come from? I'm assuming you probably have some experience in the stock market before getting into crypto. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So, my parents are traditional immigrants from a state in India called Punjab. My parents came to America with very little, and I saw them bust their butt. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with my parents growing up. My dad was always working. And when you come from that type of background, they wanted me to become successful. And in their eyes, the way you do that is either by becoming a doctor or by becoming a doctor. There's nothing else. You either become a doctor or you're a failure. There's nothing in the middle. So that was the route that I was going down. I was always told not to waste my time doing anything that's not going to get me into medical school. So don't waste my time playing sports. Don't waste my time doing these dumb entrepreneurial hobbies. Don't waste my time doing all this stuff because it's not going to get me into medical school. Now, I didn't always listen to my parents. I loved sports. I played football against my parents' wishes. And I did a lot of entrepreneurial stuff, which made me a little bit of money here and there when I was in high school. And then I went on to college, and I graduated high school in 2009. And so, you talk about my investing experience. I didn't have any education, but I guess you can say I started in high school because I wanted to drive a Mustang, a Ford Mustang, but they were kind of expensive, and I couldn't afford a Ford Mustang, and my dad wasn't going to buy me a Ford Mustang. And this was right after the 2008 crash. And so I'm from Michigan, and our economy revolves on Ford, GM, Chrysler. So Mustang is a Ford car. GM and Chrysler went bankrupt. Ford was on the verge of bankruptcy. And I was like, well, I can't buy a Ford Mustang. The next best thing I can do is buy the Ford stock. So I went onto the stock market and I started buying shares of Ford when it was just a couple bucks. I don't know what I was doing. I was just like, whatever. I wanted a Mustang. And not too long after, like, my investment doubled, tripled. And I was like, wow, I'm a financial genius.
Yeah.
So then I go on to college, and, I tried a bunch of other things in the stock market. I tried trading penny stocks because I was like, oh my God, I know what I'm doing. And then I lost all my money and kind of just wasted a whole bunch of time and realized that I really don't know what I'm doing. But that was kind of the initial tip of my investing experience. But then I went on to college and I did some more entrepreneurial ventures. I built an event planning company, and I started investing in real estate. And I was 19 when I bought my first investment property. It was a small condo, about 1,000 square feet, bought it out of foreclosure for $8,000. And it sounds crazy now, but I didn't know anything else. Like, I didn't know what real estate was supposed to be like. I didn't know any real estate investors. No one in my family is a real estate investor, but I wanted to do it because I started reading these business books and money books, and everyone said that wealthy people invest in real estate. I had no idea what that meant. So I found this condo. It was previously sold for in the range of $120,000 to $150,000. Now I was able to buy it out of foreclosure for $8,000. I put in $4,000 worth of work, and then I rented it out for $600 a month. And all of a sudden, I created this new stream of passive income, which I did not know was possible. And this is where I started getting irritated. It's like, wait, I can buy these assets which pay me, and now I can build this type of passive income without having to physically work. I never learned this. I was told that if I wanted to make money, I had to work. And the way that you make more money is by you go to school, get a good degree, you get a high-paying job, and then you make money. And nowhere along the way did I learn about investing. Nowhere along the way did I learn about passive income. Nowhere along the way did I learn about wealth. Nowhere along the way did I learn about this type of money management. So now I started asking this question of, wait, what the heck am I doing? Instead of trying to become a doctor, what if I try to just buy assets? Now my mindset's changing. And that's when I really started to ask questions about the system and how things work. And I started to get much more curious about investing. I started buying more real estate. I started buying more stocks. And a lot of things just started irritating me. I've done a lot of things just kind of out of being angry. The question of schooling really started to bug me because I was like, why didn't I learn about this stuff in school? Because I'd gone through a lot of schooling, and no one ever taught me this stuff about money. And then I started digging a little bit deeper because, the student loan crisis is a pretty big issue right now. And the number one liability for young people, millennials, are student loans. And the government always says how, student loans are a big problem. It's slowing down the growth for millennials. Millennials are struggling because of student loans. But at the same time, the number one asset for the United States government are student loans. So it's like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. And I couldn't believe that the first time I heard that. And then I went and did some research, and I was like, holy moly, you search on Google what the number one asset for the United States government is, and you realize that student loans are funding all of the government's operations. And so it's like, it is. And it's like, wait, I'm told to just blindly follow the system, but the system is screwing me over when I blindly do that. And so that's when I really started I call it the minority mindset, because the whole idea is you think differently than the majority of people. So I started investing in real estate more. I started investing in stocks, now kind of more sound investing, not trading and stuff, learning fundamentals and all of that. Then I built businesses. And so that's kind of how I started. And then now obviously cryptocurrency has popped up as another asset class.
Right, right. My question basically was, what's your financial education and background? And really, it's just concrete experience, concrete experience, concrete experience. You didn't go to business school, right? Did you say
Oh,
you
no,
were
I
on your
never
way
went
to
to
becoming
business
a
school.
lawyer?
Well, I was supposed to be a doctor, and then my parents found out that I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor and that I wasn't gonna do medicine because I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I was
Yeah, yeah,
doing it because I wanted to make money, which didn't make sense in my mind because I felt like I would be a very I mean, it was just disingenuous because obviously I'd want to treat every patient with the best care possible. But if I wanted to maximize the number of dollars, I got to do the max number of patients. So it just didn't make
yeah.
sense in my mind. So my parents were like, well, if you're not going to be a doctor, you have to at least become an attorney. So I was like, well, okay, that's fine. I went to law school part-time, which meant I could do business full-time. So I went to law school. But yeah, everything kind of was through experience, trial, and error. I have made so many mistakes, which is kind of a big topic for a lot of my videos. That way people don't have to make the same expensive mistakes that I did, whether it's from
Yeah.
starting a business to investing in real estate to just investing in general, because these are things that I never grew up learning, things that I wish somebody would have told me when I was younger.
Yeah, yeah. So, there's, of course, there's the term from investing about FOMO, fear of missing out. You have a different kind of FOMO, perhaps, like about the stuff that you didn't learn and wish you had learned in school. Uh, how do you deal with the things that you wish you already knew about now? When something is on that level, oh, why don't I know all about X, Y, and Z today? How do you attack that?
Well, I mean, this is such a great day and age to be learning
Yeah,
because we have access to things like YouTube. And YouTube has decentralized education. And I love that because now you have the ability to learn whatever it is that you want on your fingertips for free with literally no barrier to entry.
yeah,
10 years ago, that wasn't possible. Like 10 years ago, I mean, maybe YouTube was there, but you didn't have educators on YouTube like we do now. And if you wanted to learn something that wasn't in your kind of core circle, so if you didn't have rich and wealthy parents or a rich and wealthy circle, you'd have to go and read books. And yeah, it was possible, but it was harder. You got to go to the library, you got to go to the bookstore, you got to buy a book and you have to read it, which takes a lot of time, kind of a big barrier to entry. Versus
mhm,
now, you want to go and learn something, anything. I mean, you name anything, just go onto YouTube, search it, and you'll have somebody explain it for you. And if you don't like the way that they explain it, you can go to somebody else. And I love this so much because I remember when I was in college, I loved math. I always liked math growing up. It was one of my favorite subjects. And I'm in college and I took Calc 2. And the professor, oh my God, he had such a strong accent. So I couldn't understand a word that he was saying. There's nothing wrong with having an accent. My
mhm.
parents have an accent, but I couldn't understand anything that he said. And then on top of that, he sucked at explaining things. I didn't understand anything. I didn't learn a thing. And I go to take an exam. And I remember that during the exams, if you came out with a 49% on the exam, that was curved to an A plus. I'm like, if I can get 4 out of the 10 questions right, I
Yeah,
did,
yeah. More than
to
half
me.
wrong is an A plus. Come on.
It's yeah, I mean it's insane. So this is it was like I was irritated by that, but now YouTube allows you to learn whatever you want from whoever you want. So it provides the easiest way for someone to learn anything with
Yeah.
literally no barrier to entry.
Yeah, yeah. So, at the risk of asking you to tease a little bit of what people might see if they look up your channel, you've done quite a bit of content on inflation. So to put this
Yeah.
to a question, what's the deal with inflation, man? Why are
Oh man.
how and why are we able to just print money as a country and it all still works, or does it still work?
So that's a very interesting question you brought up at a very interesting time. So I had been talking about inflation since 2020, ever since we started the stimulus programs. Now, what is inflation? Because I want to make sure that we all have the same definition. Because many people assume that inflation is when the price of things go up, and that's wrong. I mean, that can be a symptom of inflation, but that's not what inflation is. Inflation, by its definition, means to inflate. And inflate what? The monetary supply. So
Uh-huh.
inflation is when you increase the amount of dollars that you have. Now, that can cause the price of things to go up, but you can also see the price of things go down when you have inflation. So let's kind of dive into that. So when you increase the monetary supply, what happens is the value of each individual dollar goes down. You're diluting the value of the dollar. You're diluting your currency. And so how can the price of anything go down if you're diluting the value of your currency? Well, if you have technological improvements, if you have supply chain improvements, if you can lower the cost or barrier to create a product, the price of this thing will go down. Now, if you didn't have inflation, the price of this product would have gone down even further. But because you had inflation, it didn't go down as far. So you can still see the price of things go down with inflation. It just won't go down as far as it would have if you didn't have inflation. So that's why the prices of things going up is a side effect of inflation, because what happens is your buying power goes down. You're diluting the value of your currency. So, when we started creating these stimulus programs, what happened? Well, people were not working. We weren't producing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that we were producing as a country was money. The Federal Reserve Bank hit the money printer and they started printing money. And they started distributing this money in the form of stimulus programs to people. They started distributing it to corporate bailouts to businesses. They started distributing it as a stock market bailout. We had unlimited quantitative easing in the stock market. And so all of these things gave everybody kind of like a little injection of a drug, like here's some free money, right? People got free money. The stock market got free money. Businesses got free money. A big sudden bolt of free money. Well, what did that do? So now all of a sudden people got money and they were told to not pay for their mortgage because you had a mortgage forbearance program. You were told not to pay for your rent because you didn't have to pay a landlord. And you were told not to pay your student loans because you have student loan forbearance. So you were told to now go out and stimulate the economy. What does it mean to stimulate the economy? Go out and spend your money at Amazon, make Amazon richer. Go out and spend your money at Walmart, make Walmart richer. So, I mean, and when you don't have any sort of financial education and you get free money, that's what you do. You go out and spend. So people went out. We were not producing anything besides money. People are getting money. They go out and spend. Now you go out to the store, you go out to Amazon, you go out and you spend money and you buy products. Now, the United States doesn't make that many products. It doesn't make the products, nearly as many products as we used to 5 decades ago. We have outsourced a lot of this manufacturing. So you go out and you buy a whole bunch of products, and these products are made in China and overseas, India. Well, you had a lot of manufacturing plants shut down overseas, but you had the sudden surge in demand of people wanting to buy things. Where did the demand come from? Free money. So now people are going and they're shopping, buying products made overseas, and now these manufacturing plants overseas are overloaded with orders. So now they start producing products. They're trying to keep up with demand. And this is what led to the supply chain issues that we have today, where companies are trying to keep up with all this demand. People are buying things and people are willing to spend more to buy things because they want things now, but companies just can't source products because these manufacturing plants are overseas. Well, for the last year or so, the Federal Reserve Bank has said time and time again that this inflation is transitory. The first time they said it was in March of 2021, they said it was temporary. Then in April, they finally said it was transitory. That's when the whole kind of the inflation is transitory started really becoming a thing. And then in the summer, when people started to get more worried about inflation, that's when President Biden got behind the Fed and he said that inflation is transitory. The Fed is doing the right thing. They need to continue money printing. They need to keep interest rates low, and they're doing the right thing. And this went on and on and on. And even into November, the first week of November, a lot of people started to get worried about inflation because in October of 2021, we had the highest inflation levels in decades. In decades. And so people naturally started to get worried. So the first week of November, the Fed came out again. Jerome Powell, the chairman, said that inflation is still transitory. We're just facing a period of high inflation. Well, just recently, in the first week of December, we had a meeting with Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, and then the Financial Services Committee, Congress. And that was the first time that Jerome Powell said he was wrong. He said that I need to stop saying that this is transitory. We need to stop saying that I was wrong about inflation. What does that mean? Inflation is here to stay. He admitted that. And so now he's saying that their goal is not to get the prices of products back down, because that's originally what he said, that, hey, we're going to have high inflation. And then in 2022, the price of products are going to suddenly drop. What he's saying is that's not going to happen. But instead, what we're going to try to do is by the second half of 2022, we're going to try to bring inflation back to a normal level, meaning at around 2% a year. So that is kind of the whole issue with inflation, but there's a lot of concerns with that now, because what does that mean? I mean, we are in a period of high inflation and low economic growth. And the Federal Reserve Bank is now faced with a dilemma, because on one hand, they're realizing that inflation is an issue. I mean, he came out and said that it's a bigger issue than he thought. The risks for high inflation are soaring. That was word for word what he said. He said it is soaring. And so, I mean, if you're in a period of high inflation and low economic growth, when was the last time we saw that? The 1970s. It was a period of stagflation. And so the worry is, what happens if you dilute the value of a dollar too much? You have too much inflation. Well, then the worry, the risk, the worst case scenario is your dollar becomes worthless. And so obviously, you know, we have a lot of benefits. We are the strongest economy, the strongest government, we're the strongest military presence. But that is a concern. And that was also a concern in the 70s. That's why in order to fight this inflation in the early part of the 1980s, we had to ramp up interest rates. So if you wanted to go out and buy a home in the early 1980s, you couldn't get a mortgage for 3% or 4%. You were paying 18.5%.
Yeah.
The reason being that was the only way that they could contract the monetary supply to slow down inflation and to slow things down. So this is why inflation is a concern, because if the Fed starts fighting inflation, that means you're going to see a rise in interest rates. How high, how fast, I don't know. But if you start to see the Fed start fighting interest rates, start fighting inflation, I mean, if you see them start fighting inflation, well, then you could see a slowdown in the economy. And that's where, what does that mean? And that's where all these things become a concern. So I know that was a lot, but that's kind of like what is inflation, why it's a concern, and everything that's going on with it.
Yeah. Well, we definitely appreciate your insight there. I want to ask you just one more question, because we're almost out of time here. But I wonder if, given everything that you just shared with us about inflation, what connecting lines do you see from inflation to cryptocurrency? Because there's a very popular idea out there, shared by many people, that cryptocurrency in general and Bitcoin in particular are some kind of ultimate inflation hedge. Does that track with you? Do you also think that?
Yeah. So I own Bitcoin. Now, there is a risk. You have to be aware of the risk as well. So obviously Bitcoin, there's a limited supply of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a deflationary asset versus our dollar is an inflationary asset. Our dollar can be printed, which can dilute the value of the dollar. More Bitcoin cannot be printed. So as long as the demand for Bitcoin, the usability of Bitcoin continues to rise, you have more and more people fighting for the same number of Bitcoin, which ultimately makes the value of Bitcoin go up. But there's also a risk, which is why you have to be aware of both sides. I own Bitcoin, but there's also a risk that, hey, people get worried. People start to lose trust. If we've been seeing a massive bull market in Bitcoin, and I do think cryptocurrency is the future, but there's also a lot of risk in crypto. There's a lot of crappy coins out there.
Yeah.
And because of that, could we see a crypto crash? Sure, it's possible. And if that crypto crash happens, that could cause a lot of things to go down. And if Bitcoin goes down and people start panicking, because I forgot what the number was, but I think it was like 50% of buyers in Bitcoin or their cost basis is above $60,000 a coin. I don't know if it's 50, but it's something really high.
Yeah.
And so if people start to lose value, they start to see their portfolio go down, especially if they don't understand the value, they're just buying it to get rich and they start selling, you could see a crash in it. And so you have to just be aware of the risk. I mean, one of the kind of the risks of investing in a newer asset class, sure, you can see a lot of potential upside, but the other risk side is you can see a lot of volatility as well. So you have to be aware of that, and you have to not get emotional. You have to know what it is, and so I own Bitcoin. I also own physical gold. So there's no way to predict what's going to happen. There's just only ways to protect and be aware and be educated.
Sure. Yeah. I'm broadly hearing you say, just like, be diversified, have more than one thing you can fall back on. Crypto makes sense. Gold makes some amount of sense. Yeah. Appreciate that.
Exactly. They make sense in their own ways. I mean, gold has obviously done nothing compared to Bitcoin or crypto in the last decade,
Yeah.
but I don't really care about the price of gold. It's for me, it's just real money.
I feel you.
Do I want to bury dollars in my backyard? Do I want to bury gold?
Yeah. Jaspreet, I want to thank you for sharing your time with us and learning a little bit more about your YouTube channel and how you think about things. If you like what Jaspreet has to say, be sure to check out his still growing YouTube channel, Minority Mindset. Recently crossed the 1 million subscriber mark. Why not pour a little gas on his fire and give him a subscribe? Jaspreet, thanks for joining us on Crypto Hot Seat today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.